Today on the Random Junk Channel, Captain Cash's Laboratory, we're going to be working on a Skull River piece by Lemax. This has a little hitch in its giddy up, so I'm going to turn it on. Sound works. I'm going to turn the sound down so it's not so deafening. Yeah, there's a little hitch. So you can see everything's rotating fine. When it hits the hitch, none of these characters are interfering with the wall. So sometimes on rotating pieces, the tolerances are off and like the character rubs up against a piece of the plastic or resin and that causes it. You can definitely see by the jerk, and I can see the motion. I'm not sure if you can, but I can see the whole center disc move. So I'm leaning towards it's probably got a broken gear. Or I've had a couple where they just come unscrewed. The screws on the inside walk out. So this is an older piece, which means it has the pain in the butt foam bottom. Now, one thing that is nice about this piece is it's got a lot of flat sides on it, so you can set it up and not worry about breaking something off. So we do have a positive there. We're going to start with seeing how this comes off, meaning sometimes it'll come off easy because of its age and other times it won't. So it's already starting to peel right here, so I just used a razor knife to reach up underneath. I'm using the back side of the knife to pull. Looks like starting to tear a little. You can use heat, sometimes that works. More often than not anymore, it starts to melt the foam. But sometimes you get lucky and you can get it to separate. This is only really glued on the edges. That's all we need. And I'll show you why. In case you haven't watched older videos. You see this ring? That black ring goes all the way around. That's the mechanism. We can leave the pad stuck to the mechanism for now so we can get the mechanism out. Sometimes you have to remove the rest of the pad or put a hole in it to get to a screw. Sometimes it's usually 3. Lemax is good at doing everything in 3s. But we'll see once we get the mat off. All right. Now if the mat doesn't come off nicely, you can always replace it with a mat that is got the adhesive already on it. They sell them at like Michael's, and I think Hobby Lobby carries them too. The only difference is it won't say Lemax on the bottom anymore. You can also use the top of the box to flip this upside down, which I might actually do that because the big side is it's rolling too much. That's the bottom. There's the top. Oh, well, it may not be as good as I want, but it'll help stabilize it. So we can continue. So right here, the mat's stuck on the hot glue. I'm going to glue the actual mechanism in. You can use a spudger to do this as well. I'm using the razor knife, so when I hit the hard glue like right here, I can try and cut through it. Now, you can use a spudger or a small screwdriver. I'll use a small screwdriver if I can find where to put it. Start with this one. I'm going to see how this glue is adhered. See if we need to heat it up or not. A lot of the times it will separate just like that. So now I need a slightly bigger screwdriver or my spudger. Now if your glue is still really hard, you can, or excuse me, really stretchy, not hard. If it's hard, it usually just breaks. You can heat it up. A lot of times though, it'll just start to separate. You might hit some hard spots, like right where I was. Just be careful with the heat so you don't melt the plastic or burn yourself. And of course, hot glue, when it's hot, is really sticky. So sometimes it's hard to work with. But heat is always your friend. Just don't apply too much. It's almost out. So it's, when I lift that last section, it separated to about here. So now I'm going to work on the top edge. Looks like the edge with the skull is going to be the hard spot. That's where everything's sticking because they used a lot of extra glue on this edge, right down here. But there's a little hole where they didn't fill it in all the way. The screwdriver fit perfectly. Alright, she's pretty much separated. I have a string of glue that doesn't want to let go, so we're going to cut that side and this side. Oh, there's a few. When you're doing this, make sure you just cut the glue and not the wires. There we go. So the circuit boards aren't attached anymore. The glue has broke free. And I don't think that's our problem. I think our problem is going to be with the mechanism. So I'm going to plug her back in, because now that this is out, we can run it upside down and it won't affect anything. Right here. The reason I'm going to stop it right here is a piece of foam in the track. So now we got that out. Let's continue. Yeah, we still got a hitch in his gate up. Let's see. So far all the gears look pretty good. definitely have a problem. The gears are making more than one revolution before it goes click. That's kind of surprising. So we're going to have to take the rest of it apart. Now, this is where you have a choice. You can rip the entire bottom off, or you can just make 3 small holes for the 3 screws to hold this together. So, if we turn it sideways, these standoffs right here screw in from the bottom. There's 3, which is a very, very common number for Lemax. So, I usually just prefer the hole method, just to make life easier. You just gotta find the screw. Alright, let's put this back in. Okay, where's the screw? That's strange. Probably because it should be right in here. Apparently I'm too far over. Well, that's strange. It's supposed to be a screw there. Right here. Knuckle in. Right here. I might just have to peel the bottom off just to verify. But normally, this is apparently the exception to the rule. You can just put a small hole in it to get to the screw. But I don't see a screw. So that indicates to me that this comes off. This is probably glued down. Just kind of pry around it carefully. There's no screw there either. All right. I don't remember which piece it is, but the center piece has a tombstone. It's more deserty, not water. And you had to pop it off. Underneath was 3 screws. Like I said, 3 is a very common number with Lemax. That's easily glued back on. So. Okay, Lemax, how did you do this? I mean, I've been wrong before, but this one's making me really wrong. Probably gonna have to replace the whole bottom. There's the screws. They're in the middle. So the outer standoffs don't have screws in them. They're probably just an alignment stud. They're probably hollow for a screw for a different piece. So I'm going to replace this whole bottom. I'm going to make a new piece of foam for it. Sure, this is a 3. Yes. It's not a perfect triangular 3, but it is a 3. I mentioned in other videos that you can, when you replace the foam, you don't have to go with the black original. I said if it's something water-based, you could use blue foam. Like this would be perfect to have the blue foam as an example. If it was mine, because of the water, to make it look like it's a water feature on like an island. But that's just personal preference. Because you can buy this sticky foam in a variety of colors. I have it in black, blue, red, green. Because it's not just used for the bases, you can use them for other stuff too. But since you've now seen this one, you can do yours and just poke the 3 holes like I was mentioning. They're going to be towards the center. Alright, so here's the rotating characters. They sound good. The ring gear looks good. So I was looking for any broken teeth because it turns so much. So now let's check the bigger one here and look for any broken teeth. One way to do it quickly is to feel it. You'll feel the broken tooth. Now we're going to turn that back on and see if it's still clicking. not clicking. I'm going to put a load on it with my finger. Still nothing. Okay, so there's the problem right here. I see no reason for it to be jumping. What I do with my fingers is trying to keep it centered because it's trying to walk. Yeah, there's the click. I'm now feeling to see if there's any burrs. I don't know why this thing would be clicking. Just to be safe, I'm going to open this up and see if there is a chip tooth in here that I just can't see while it's spinning. Sometimes it spins faster than you can see with your eye. It's usually where it will be, but it feels, since I have my fingers on it, like it's coming from one of these gears is binding, but they all move freely. One of the gears on the 3 rafters. This one doesn't want to come out. Probably helps if I use the right size screwdriver. There we go. A little more torque than the other one. Alright, none of the bushings are cracked. So we'll start with the impossible gear. We'll check the teeth. They're all intact. Then we go 2 gears over. They're all intact. We'll go with this gear. They're intact. And lastly is the drive gear, which is also intact. I'm going to be leaning towards there's an alignment issue in here somewhere. Something is not lined up. And I'm not talking about these gears. I'm talking about this to the rafters. Because if one of these was bad, when I had my finger pressing against that gear, I should have been able to feel the click. So and these 3 standoffs, the screws are on the top. So that way it can come off. It's not like you can replace the gear unless you have a parts piece. They don't really have this big outer ring gear available anywhere. But let's make sure that these are actually tight. That one was, this one wasn't. is. Let's make sure these are tight. That one's loose. That one's loose. That one's loose. And again, an alignment issue can be the screws are backing out. I'm going to tighten these three up. That one's pretty tight. That one's tight. That one's tight. All right. She is definitely catching on something. What is she catching on? I think I see the problem. Let me just double check. That's one. Yep, that's the problem. Ah, sees it. Wow. I'm glad that it has lights in here to illuminate upwards. So, it's hitting right here on this one, and it's actually peened. What's hitting is this has a little, you can kind of see. So, the rafters are depressing, so I guess this extra slack, and it's catching. So I saw it hitting this one. This one is clearing. I can't see this one from the angle I'm at, but I'm going to try it again and look at this guy here. It's definitely hitting that one. So let's put her back in. There we go. I guess I could do it manually, but why do it manually when we got power? And I'm glad, like I said, those blue lights are in here because now I can see. No, probably helps if it's actually on the track. Turn it back off. There we go. So it appears to be this rafter only that's hitting as it's going around. So yeah, that was kind of a pain to figure out. And it's only, I think, the second. Well, the teacup ride is notorious for having the gear come out of alignment, but usually it grinds the top down before it catches underneath. So how do we tighten these bad boys up? They're just pressed on, and we need to get them on a little bit further. I don't think they're gonna press on easy. So I'm gonna use a small rubber mallet. I'm gonna see if I can hold it and tap. So I'm going to hold this so I can try and tap the gear on. It doesn't appear to have moved. So I'm going to do it again, but this way when I hit, my hand doesn't move because it's against the bench. It doesn't move as much. Let's rephrase that. Looks like I might have moved that time. So looking at this one, the silver axle shaft that makes it rotate was recessed below the white. These two are flush with the white of the gear. So I'm thinking this should start to resolve our issue. Now I just gotta get their seat back in there. So And then we're going to watch it again. Get a good viewing position, and here we go. Nope, still catching. It looks like it's still, now it's the witch. So I'm going to watch the witch as it comes around. Watch the other one. No, I think it's still the zombie or the mummy. So I'm just picking the most obvious character. In this one we got a mummy, a witch, and then the other one's got an astronaut, a cowboy, and Dracula. But I'm looking at how much lateral movement there is, pushing the whole thing straight in and out. This one has a lot of movement. This one has minimal. And this one has more than this one, but less than this one. I gotta figure out how to press them on without breaking the characters. That's where we're gonna have the hard part. I have an idea. If I take this ring off and try and push in the center, it might work. So I have to use the edge of the bench so I can hang the other characters off. So all I'm doing is I'm going to imitate it here on the foam. I'm going to put the gear on the edge of the bench, and I'm going to put something against the center, probably like a screwdriver handle if I have a small enough one that fits in between everybody. If not, I'll go get like a wooden dowel, and then I'm going to slowly tap. So on the edge of my bench, you can't see, right down here are holes. And that's so I can beat the axle shafts through the gears that are pressed on. So when I tap them in for the pressing, I can drive the pin down. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'd line it up with the hole and then tap the top. I'm probably gonna get a dowel, a wooden dowel. And the reason being is the wood will absorb extra impact. So it's less likely to do any damage. So I shall return in just a moment. Okay, it's getting better. It still has a little hitch. Not as bad as you can see. So what I've been doing is I'm going to use this as a representation. So the hole in the bench, I put this gear on so I can test it because I can't test it without the right height. Line up the hole with the center, like so. Let me just take this ring back off. I had to put the ring, like I said, back on to test it, so. So this was the hole in the bench. I'm doing this, and then I'm using a shelf dowel rod and putting it here, putting the hole like that, and then doing that, and then slowly pressing it higher up so there's less play, because it's not this play, it's the forward and backwards. See, I can move the whole blue disc. Let's look right here. Don't look at the bottom because it's flexing, but I can move it in and out. We need to take up that slack. I'm doing it very slowly because if I make it too tight, these won't turn. And too loose, it's rubbing right on this leading edge. Kind of a very tight tolerance design. Biggest issue I'm having is it keeps sliding around because it's greasy as all get out. So, yeah. But other than that, that's what I've been doing. And I found that this works pretty good as far as your dowel rod. And you might have these lying around if you buy furniture that comes with dowel rods, such as bookcases or etageries, or 99% of everything that comes from IKEA. And they usually send you a spare or two. This is from an IKEA shelf that I didn't use all the shelves, so I had spares. Luckily, they were sitting on my counter because I just assembled it, so I hadn't put them away yet. So something like this is good to keep around for certain things. I keep them as spares just in case I need something. But right now, it's helping with these because wood absorbs the impact of the hammer. So I'm still losing impact, but it's not transferring it through violently. It's softening the blow. Takes longer, but it helps protect it, and it raises the impact area up above all the characters. So I'm going to keep pounding away at it until I get the tolerances to almost 0, just enough to where they still spin, and that it clears this leading edge on all 3. So that appears to be the problem. The problem is it keeps catching here, here, and here. I see there's a piece of foam right here. I'm going to take that out. And that's all I can find. Because this mechanism here spins just fine. And even if I, like I said, put a load on it, you can hear it got slower, or the noise slowed down. I am putting a load on it. I mean, you can see it's grooving my finger, and it's not clicking. If I put this ring in here, which it won't stay because there's nothing, all the teeth, I forgot the screws, all the teeth line up, and they're not meshing, so they're meshing just fine. So if I set that in here, they grab perfectly. But the only thing I can see is when I do this little piece here is catching, and if you feel this side is smooth and the leading edge side, you can feel it's been peened. So I'm also going to probably take a file and sand the leading edge side down again, because this one's really jagged. This one's got a raised spot, and this one feels okay, so it's catching on these two more than this one. So, and then on the gear, let's see, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, probably not, but the leading edge of these is also peeled up because it's been catching for a while. It's probably been catching since it was built, but it was such a small catch, being probably thinner than a piece of paper. It's just slowly been wearing it down, and then it finally got too big, and now it's just lifting and lifting and lifting. So I'm going to keep this, pushing these in to remove the vertical slack, and then I'm going to take a small file down these edges and probably file these down with some sandpaper, maybe the file. I just need to get rid of the sharpness from it catching for so long. Then we're going to test it again. So if you don't have a file, you can use sandpaper and just work the edge. Just be careful of the debris it makes, the sand and the plastic. If you use a file, you don't have the sand part. The sandpaper won't come off. So on this, I'm going to use a file, because then I just have plastic debris I have to worry about, and not the sand debris, because sand debris, if you don't get it all out of the lubrication, which we're going to re-lubricate it anyhow, the sand will eventually wear it down faster. So I'm just going to use one of those little small files that's used for chainsaws or hobbies, and work on the edges and get rid of the peen, especially on these two where you can hear it. See, this one's not as bad. This one's non-existent, but this one is definitely there. So, all right, I'm going to continue working on this, but that's how I do it. Like I said, it's off camera because the edge of my bench, the camera's viewing range doesn't tilt that direction, just like that. Except the hole is actually in the bench, not the gear. So I just needed something for visual representation, and that's why I got this out. All right, shall return hopefully with a successful reseat and filing. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, we're back. I've done some basic filing. So this is just a file I had surprisingly laying around the house. I have no idea why. But it's a 3-sided file. I'm sure it's different grits on each side, but probably not. Nah, they're all the same. Anyway, so I filed the leading edge off on each one where it was peened up or burred, and there you go. It still has a little bit of a hitch. You can see it every once in a while, so I probably need to take a little bit more off, but that's all I've done. Found a file that apparently I had sitting in my junk drawer in the kitchen. Again, not sure why, but probably just ended up there by accident. And it just took about, I don't know, a minute. I screwed the ring back on. Here. So that's screwed on nice and tight. I took it back off to see about checking these edges so I could come in from different angles if I needed to file them. So all I did was just took the file and just did this on the entire leading edge and just the leading edge on all 3. So if you're going to do this to yours, if for some reason yours is doing what this one's doing, and that's the problem, just make sure that you don't catch whether it's a triangular file or a flat file. I wouldn't use a round file because you might cut grooves into the leading edge. You can kind of see the plastic. Careful not to catch the edge to cut the wires or hit the lights, and also not to hit the teeth, whether you're too steep and you're resting it on the teeth. This is the hardest one. You can remove the character if he's in your way. You can see it just barely touches. So I can't figure out why it's doing what it's doing. The only thing I can think of is it's wearing down. The sound still works. Just keep it off so you can hear me and I don't go deaf, because they're a lot louder in person than what the camera picks up. So as you can see, she's doing her thing. So what I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, is these rotate freely. As you can see, whee! And even though they may get a little loose, I think it's actually wearing out the plastic it rides on the spin. So this doesn't rest upon the fake water. It's got a plastic or nylon bushing. You can kind of see the white right there. And it's possible that just from doing this constantly, for however long this has been running throughout its life, it's worn the bushing down just a little bit. Maybe the thickness of a piece of paper, which is just enough for these little standoffs where the metal shaft stops to come into contact, which on like a car engine we call it interference, with the leading edge of all 3. So what this is doing is I'm filing the edge down so that stops the big jump, and if it does touch, now it has an angled slope, so the gear does this, it rides up over it versus catching on it. So I made a ramp. So it does 2 things. It gets rid of the edge that's peened up, and it provides a ramp, so if this wears more, it's less likely to get caught. It'll ride up and drop down, ride up and drop down. So you won't get the jerking motion, you just might see the characters lift a little, lift a little, lift a little as they go over the 3 standoffs. The other option is putting a small spacer underneath this wheel on those 3 screws that hold the gear to the base of the water wheel. Just an itty bitty amount, a really small spacer that fits inside the standoffs. And that small spacer would be a half a millimeter or less. You would need something really thin, maybe the thickness of a piece of construction paper, or 2 or 3 pieces stacked on top of each other, to lift it up to remove the interference. But what I believe is happening, just from watching it, is that it just constantly rotates and constantly spins, and it's wearing down the bushings. Now, only 2 of the 3 had interference. The Witch and the Mummy being the worst. This one hadn't had interference yet. So that's why I'm leaning towards it's the wearing down of the material and not a defect in the manufacturing. I just think their tolerances are so tight that they didn't take into account use wear. Everything that you use wears down over time. You drive a car, you can wear the engine out because you'll wear the cylinders. The cylinders will become egg-shaped, as an example. Or you wear your shoes, you wear the tread off of them. Everything wears. Friction. Nothing you can do about it. And I don't think that they took into account how fast or slow the wear would be to where it would cause interference. That's just my hypothesis. I could be completely off base. This just could have been an effective one from the factory where they put the wrong size spacer in. I don't know. But there you go. So now it's time to reassemble it, which is just a lot of glue. Flip it over, put the center back in, glue this on, put a new cover on it, a lot of glue. So, and then we'll do a fully functional test where it's assembled, make sure that the clearance around the edge of the ring is fine inside the base here, and we'll do a low light test so those who don't have this piece can see what it looks like when the lights are on, there, and when the lights are off, because like my display, I usually show it with minimal light because there's so many of them, it produces enough light you can see just fine. But some people don't do that. I do. I like to see what they look like in almost complete darkness. So we're going to do that too. But anyhow, as you can see, it's been running without the screws holding the center down, and it's been running just fine. So if I do stick this in, so these 2 are closer, so they go right there. Like so. Now I'll put the screws in, and we'll see how it works with the screws. Because now it'll have tension on the center. But at the moment, because you saw it before, it wasn't working with the no tension. It was still catching. One screw. Two screws. And number 3. And we're just going to make sure they're snug. Never tighten the screw until you get all of them in. Meaning, bring them all the way down, but just don't tighten them. So that way you have a little bit of play to make sure that all your screws are centered. Give it a little bit of sound. So, if you have this piece, don't take the center off. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera while I glue it all back together. Before I do glue it together, I am going to put some lubrication around inside again. I did wipe some of it off, especially when I was filing to remove the plastic shavings. So I am going to re-lubricate it. We're going to put a little bit of the white PTFE grease on it. And then I'm going to flip it over, put it back in, glue the edge. While it's upside down, I'm going to scrape off the rest of the Lemax sticker that's on here, so that we have a nice flat clean surface to apply a new foam piece. Then I'll flip it straight back up. I'm going to glue this on. I'm going to use a hard resin glue, so I'll probably use, what I use is this, the Gorilla Clear. And then it'll cure to movable cure in 12 hours, meaning I can move the piece. It'll be cured to the point where I could lift the entire piece up with just this in 24. I don't recommend doing that. That's just like the old crazy glue commercials where the guy would hang from the hard hat on the beam saying, look how strong it is. That stuff's just as strong. It just takes longer to cure because it's not a crazy or super glue. It's a slow, super strong glue. So, there you go. No broken gears. Not a bad motor. Not a bad belt. Literally just wore itself out of tolerance. So, anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to re-lubricate it, put her back together, scrape the bottom, and glue this on. And we'll come back while this is curing. We can do the low light test because I won't have to move the piece. Other than that, should be good. So, return just in a moment. Okay, it's back together. I have not glued the center on, it's pretty obvious. The reason I didn't is I wanted to show you. I scraped the bottom. You can see where it really adhered in this area. So if you have this piece, it might be easier just to locate these 3 screws and just make small holes in the foam. And then just peel the edges or cut right along the glue line of the edges. So this is the stuff I buy from Michael's. So it's the same basic thickness foam. And this whole back, you peel it off and it's just sticky. And it's the same type of foam. So what I normally do is I will just basically center the piece and just stick it on, and then take this style razor knife to cut it off. And then this is what I use to scrape the rest of the bottom off. So it's a X-Acto blade that you scrape. Well, this is one that you cut. So that's why I didn't put this on yet, so I can flip it over and show you what the bottom looks like. And then I think these things right now are like 99 cents a sheet or 89 cents a sheet. They're not super expensive. I usually buy them when they have them on sale because every once in a while they put them on sale for like 2 for $1. I bought like 10 different colors when they were 3 for $1. I'm like, that's crazy. But every once in a while they put these things on sale. It's in the craft section where they have the craft papers and the craft sheets of foam, and then these are sitting there too with the self-adhesive, so we don't have to glue it on or use a spray adhesive to adhere it. So, but this is what I use when I can't get the bottom off intact, which is really hard to do because that adhesive is really strong. It's really tacky. So let's see if we can line this up on the first try. And this is why I didn't glue the center on, so I could put this on. And it covers the whole bottom. You have a little piece here and a little piece here, which you can tell wasn't any, there was nothing on to begin with because of the their foam. I think when they get them, this is Lemax, I think they're the same sheets. They just cut them similar to this. I could be wrong. So there you go. Now let's do low light. So this is no light, meaning there's no other lights in the room. I'll tip it so you can See the skeletons and all that glowing in the green. And then low light. So just one light. There we go. So it's not reflecting off the ceiling. One light. The flickering is not this. That's the camera trying to focus on the blue, because you can tell it's darker and lighter, so the camera is flickering, not the lights. The lights are solid. It's just the camera can't pick up the differences. So I'll go back to no light. You can really see the flicker more now. So again, there is no flickering. It's the camera. So, but anyhow, there you go. Skull River. You know how to take it apart. That way, if you have a broken gear or a bad belt or a bad motor or something of that nature, you can open it up and try and fix it. So, oh, I know I tipped it this way. I didn't tip it this way, so you can see that the character inside the mouth and his eyes fade in and out. Well, its eyes. I don't know. So, there you go. So, if yours is clicking, catching, whatever you want to call it, and it's not obvious like a broken gear, take your time, flip it upside down like I did, use the box if you have it. If not, make something to support it so you're not putting pressure on the breakable pieces like his skull. I'm going to turn the light on. Like his skull. Or the flame's pretty thick, but you can still snap it off. And there's lights right here at the base of it. So you definitely don't want to damage it too much. You might be able to see it in the camera, see the lights. They're not inside, they're pointing at it. This is acting like a fiber optic. So it's just taking the light and pulling it up. There we go. So don't take this off. Live and learn. So don't take this off. Take the bottom off and take a look. So have it upside down and running. Check if it's catching by looking at it from the side, so you can see if it's catching on the leading edge of those 3 standoff reinforcements. If it is, use a file, sandpaper. If you think you're really good with an X-Acto knife, go ahead and shave it. But basically, make it a ramp. Instead of a squared edge, make it a 45-degree edge, so it can... trying to repress those gears to make them sit higher isn't going to help a lot after doing it, is because the steel pin that goes through will still be low and still catch that leading edge. So it's a trade-off. You can try and disassemble it and put something underneath these to shim it. It's a lot of work, and if you break the gears that are attached to these guys, you're going to have a really hard time finding them. So my recommendation would be shave the leading edge, or if you're patient, make some really small paper shims that you can stick in those 3 screws that hold the ring that's attached to the spinning water, so it pushes the ring farther down, which lifts the water up. Now you can't lift it too high, because then you might start rubbing here, and then the teeth of these that grab that outer ring gear won't grab the outer ring gear, because now it's too high. So I would just go with shaving the leading edge and call it good. And that way you don't have to do anything spectacular, and you don't have to spend hours and hours. You can literally just spend, from the time you disassemble it, time you reassemble it, probably 20 to 30 minutes at most. The longest part's going to be breaking all that glue down and prying the bottom off. Once you're done, put it back on, and if it's your piece and you don't want foam on the bottom, don't put foam on the bottom. I have a piece on my display that doesn't have foam on the bottom. I didn't feel like putting foam back on it, I just left it. And you can't tell the difference because of where it's sitting and how it's sitting on its display. So if you don't have foam and you just want to scrape it off, it's yours, do what you want. But if you want the foam back on it, Michaels. I have not seen these at Hobby Lobby. They may have them, I may just not have noticed them. When Joann's was around, they didn't have them either. I've only been able to get them at Michaels. I just buy them at Michaels. Sometimes when I get their little $5 vouchers or whatever, I'll just buy a stack for the $5, pay the tax, which is pocket change, and then I have a stack to replace when I work on these older pieces, since all the newer pieces in the last couple of years don't have the foam bottoms anymore, which is kind of nice. It makes it easier to take apart. They're also not full resin or porcelain, which also makes it nicer for repairs. So, other than that, that concludes the Skull River piece from Lemax, and I hope you learned something. Any questions or comments, put them below. This is how you do it. You can probably do it in a lot less time now that you know how to take it apart and put it back together, and what to do if you need the mat, and something you can do with just a file, X-Acto knife, sandpaper. I prefer not to use sandpaper because, again, the grit, the sand coming off of it. You can use a metal burnisher from your Dremel kit, which won't produce any metal flakes. It'll just make plastic, just like the file did. PTFE grease, I've shown these in the past. I get the Super Lube synthetic grease with Syncolin. It doesn't sound great, but anyway, superlube.com. I get them from Happy Holiday Parts in these little tubes. I usually order a little package of them every time I buy from him. Support a small business. You can go to Home Depot and buy it in a much bigger jar if you want. What's nice about these little guys is you can get them into the gears because they're small, versus the big tubes that look like toothpaste, or the jars that look like a makeup jar, and then you have to like get it in there with a brush or a skewer or toothpick, cotton swab, something like that. So I just buy them from him. Makes it easier. I order motors from him several times a year, so several times a year I order, and they come in a little box like that. I've shown them before. There you go. And that's how I get them. And I do that a couple times a year. Big pieces, we'll use a lot of it. The Eiffel Tower piece, I used, I think, 2.5 tubes on that sucker. And this, I used 1/3 of a tube. Doesn't need that much grease. You only need grease on the leading edge of the outer wheel, the inner edge of the small, which you can kind of see a little shiny there because it smeared up, and then a little grease on the teeth of the gears. Do not make it so much that it gets hot and drips into the motor. That is the most common failure point of all motors from Lemax, is they over grease these things. So, but other than that, there you go. So, till the next one, thanks for watching.